Welcome back to the Actery Magic Channel. I'm Steve, the Actery. Today we are talking about Chishiro. I'm going to butcher that all day. I'm sorry. Part 2 of a two video series basically on this commander, because I thought there's a general way you could build him, and then there is a more enchantment focused way that you could build him. So let's talk about it. Oh, before we do that, we have MTG On Command is sponsoring us today. They are making 3D printed deck boxes and they are doing some good work. Check this out. So I put my commander in a top loader and then she fits right on the front. I know exactly what's in the box. I've even got a standing on this box test. Go check it out. And also 10% discount code in the description. Go go look for them. They're awesome. All right, next up, let's do this. Chishiro, 4/4 for 4. Whenever an aura equipment enters the battlefield under your control, create a 2/2 red spirit creature token with menace. So, entering the battlefield, not necessarily on casting, so it has to actually resolve. At the beginning of your end step, put a 1/1 counter on each modified creature you control. All right, so we're focused on enchantments and auras, and we're also talking about 1/1 counters on modified creatures. Let's get into it. So the first ones I saw were these, which are included in any build that you build with Chishiro. Okay, Hardened Scales is 1 green, and whenever you get to put a 1/1 counter on something, it gets an additional 1/1 counter. Sweet. Ozlith, when a creature leaves the battlefield under our control, if it had any counters on it, put those counters on Ozlith. Whenever you go to combat, you get to move all of the counters off of Ozlith onto a creature. One creature, just one. All right, so yeah, you should probably play these. They're good. They're really, really good. Okay, so Fertile Ground and Wild Growth. These are both auras that are going to ramp us. Okay, so Fertile Ground is a 2-drop that's going to let us tap for a red or a green, additional red or green, so a total of 2. And Wild Growth is going to let that land tap for whatever color it normally does, but only adding a green. So Wild Growth is amazing, but it's only going to ever add green for the Wild Growth portion. Whew, was that confusing? It's confusing. Anyway, next up, we have Sanctum Weaver, another enchantments only build kind of card, but is going to add so much mana in our Chishiro enchantment build. So for a green and a generic, it's a 0/2 enchantment creature dryad. It says tap, add X mana of any one color, where X is the number of enchantments you control. This is going to be great. She's almost always going to be tapping for 2 and 3, and sometimes stupid numbers like 7 or 8. She's awesome. And she goes into a lot of different decks, so pick up a copy. She's great. All right, next up, let's get some of our stuff back. I wanted to mention these because they do 2-for-1s. So both of them, we'll choose one or both. Return target creature from your graveyard to your hand, and or target enchantment from your graveyard to your hand. Both of them do the exact same thing, just different named cards. Oh, Season of Renewals also happens to be an instant, so it's strictly better, but they're both awesome. Next, we've got Raphaelos' Gift. This one's a little bit more complex, but it still does some really cool stuff. For a green, it says reveal any number of green cards in your hand. Maybe 1 or 2, maybe even 3. Okay, return an enchantment card from your graveyard to your hand for each card revealed this way. So it has a huge upside, and maybe just a 1-for-1 downside. It's still really, really cool, and I thought I'd mention it because it's such a unique thing that most things aren't doing for 1 green mana. I thought it was cool. Anyway, cards that come back to our hand on their own. Let's talk about them. All right, we got Rancor. Tried and true, always good. Plus 2/0 and trample for 1 green whenever it goes to the graveyard from the battlefield. Return it to your hand. Freaking awesome. Undying Rage is almost the exact same thing, but it costs 3, so okay. But in a singleton format, that's pretty sweet. For a red and 2 generic, enchanted creature gets plus 2/2 and can't block. That's the downside. But whenever it's put in a graveyard from the battlefield, return Undying Rage to its owner's hand. Let's put it on a big dude that we don't care if he dies. Sweet. And we're always going to go attacking with it. Next up, we have some protection. Aspect of Mongoose is a 2-drop that says enchanted creature can't be the target of spells or abilities. Commander? Yes, thank you. Whenever it is put in the graveyard, return it to your hand. Fortitude. Whenever it is put into the graveyard from play, return it to your hand. Sweet. Sack a forest, regenerate enchanted creature. Heck yeah. These are both really, really good protection for our commander. Next up, we have Mark of Fury is a 1 red enchantment aura. It says enchanted creature gains haste. Yes. At the end of turn, Mark of Fury, return it to your hand. Heck yeah. For 1 red, we're going to get another 2/2. We're going to give something haste, and then it also counts as modified at the end of the turn. So, by the way, if it's stacking the triggers. So you look at Chishiro's, have it resolve first before Mark of Fury is bounced to your hand, and you get an extra thing with a 1/1 counter on it. Crown of Flames is a 1 red, basically fire breathing. For a red, enchanted creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Okay, cool. For another red, we can return it to its owner's hand. So we play it for 1 red. If something's modified, we wait till the end of the turn to trigger to give it our creature a 1/1 counter, and then we bounce to our hand on an opponent's turn. Pretty choice. Next up, we have Whip Silk. Okay, Whip Silk is gross. It says for a green, it says enchanted creature may block as though it had flying. Sweet. But also for a green, return Whip Silk to its owner's hand. Again, waiting until after our end step, bouncing it to our hand, letting it sit there, or until we really need to play it again, because we're not going to expose it to discard if there's a wheel effect. Somebody's trying to wheel the table a lot. Let's not put it back in our hand just yet. Reigns of Vinesteed is a 4-drop. Enchanted creature gets +2/2. When enchanted creature is put into the graveyard, you may return Reigns of the Vinesteed from your graveyard to play attached to a creature that shares a creature type with that creature. So basically, we go swinging with our big spirit, whatever it happens to be, and then whenever that spirit dies, we just return Reigns of the Vinesteed back into play on a creature that shares the type. Pretty cool, kind of a little niche. Now let's talk some jank. Jank. I like spreading algae. I think it's funny. It's not very good if no one at the table has a copy of Urborg. But if somebody has a copy of Urborg in play, this is hilarious. Turns out Urborg can go into literally any deck. So, if you want to play Spreading Algae with Urborg and Chishiro, you can. And there's plenty of ways to go fetch up your Urborg whenever Spreading Algae is in your hand. That's hilarious. Oh, look, there's a guy's cradle on the side of the battlefield. Tap. Spreading Algae is going to blow it up next time you use it. Sorry, the inner jank came out. Continuing on, as we should. Anyway, so for some flavor, both of these are enchantment for a land, basically an aura for a land. It says pay 2 and they turn into creatures. Genji the Spires turns into a 6/1, and then of the Cedars, he becomes a 4/4. They're both still land, but whenever the Enchanted Forest or the Enchanted Mountain goes to the graveyard, the Genji comes back to your hand. Pretty cool. I thought these were kind of fun and flavorful because they also came out of Betrayers of Kamigawa. Sweet, huh? Next up, we have some attack triggers. Curse of Stalk Prey and Curse of Predation. Basically, you enchant somebody that you really don't like. And it says, Curse of Stalk Prey says whenever a creature deals combat damage to a player, put a 1 counter on that creature. Okay, so after damage is dealt. Curse of Predation, whenever a creature attacks an enchanted player, put a 1/1 counter on it. So before combat damage is dealt, before attackers are assigned, or blockers are assigned. Both of these are fantastic. Both of these should be, like, they're even good enough to go into any version of Chishiro. Very cool. And they happen to be auras. Heck yeah. Let's talk about some Enter the Battlefields. Durable Handicraft is a 2-drop enchantment. It says when a creature enters the battlefield under control, you may pay 1. If you do, put a 1/1 counter on that creature. So you can make those spirits start coming into play already modified for 1. Pretty powerful. But it's also budget, so budget friendly, okay? You can pay 6, sack it, and put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. That's if you really need everybody, and I mean literally everybody, on your side of the battlefield to have a 1/1 counter. Not a bad out. All right, next up we have Jugen Defends the Temple. Okay, there's a lot of text on this card. Basically, what you need to know is it will give you a Land of War Elves. It puts 1/1 counters on 2 creatures on its second lore, and then it transforms on the third lore, and it says whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay X. When you do, put X 1/1 counters on that creature. As long as you control 5 or more modified creatures, Remnant of the Rising Star gets +5/5 and has trample. So you're going to end up with a 7/7 trample. Flying. It's good. Next up we have Death's Presence. When a creature you control dies, put X1 counters on target creature you control, where X is the power of the creature that died. Swing with your 2/2. It dies. You get something else plus 2/2, plus 2/1/1 counters on it. Fantastic. But if something big like a 6/6 dies, something else is going to get 6/1/1 counters on it. That's fantastic. In late game, why not win some more? Okay, it's not just a win more card. It's a pretty cool card. If you happen to have a sack outlet like Goblin Bombardment, you can really stack up a bunch of those, basically those spirits, sack them all, make them all one big creature. Let's say you've got Trample or something like that. Pretty cool. Number 6 on our list, Invigorating Hot Springs. This is already in the deck, but we're here. We're talking about it. Let's talk about it. So for a green and 1 red and 1 generic, whenever it enters battlefield with 4/1/1 counters on it. But Steven, it's not a creature. Yeah, it can hold the 1/1 counters. It's just holding them in its hand. Okay, modify creatures you control have haste. Sweet. Which is basically our whole goal of the deck is to modify everything. Remove a 1/1 counter from Invigorating Hot Spring. Put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. Activate only as a sorcery and only once each turn. But still, for 3, put this into play. On 4, our commander comes into play. We move a 1/1 counter onto our commander. Our commander now has haste and is now a modified creature and can. It's just so good. It's just so good. I really like this card in so many different decks. It's going in the Misvela deck immediately. Next up, we have Ancestral Mask. Since we're already in enchantments, let's really go hard on the enchantments. For a green and 2 generic, it says enchant creature. Enchant creature gets plus 2/2 for each other enchantment on the battlefield. Not just yours, on the battlefield. Oh, it's gross. So good. Okay, number 4 on our list is Kamiya of Transience. Okay, this is a new card out of Neon Dynasty. It says when it's a 2/2 trample, whenever you cast an enchantment spell, put a 1/1 counter on Kamiya of Transience. At the beginning of each end step, if an enchantment was put into your graveyard from the battlefield this turn, you may return Kamiya of Transience from your graveyard to your hand. So this is nice because then we're going to have threats coming back to our hand. I really like this card. It's hard to get rid of unless they just exile it outright. We're going to have stuff dying. That's why we had all the return stuff at the beginning of the video. Anyway, Kamiya of Transience got my vote. Number 3 on our list, Curse of Opulence is so good for a red enchant player. Whenever enchanted player is attacked, create a colorless artifact token named gold. So whenever player A is attacked by you, you get a gold. Whenever player B and C attack player A, you get a gold. Just 1, but it's enough. Fantastic. And it's also an Aura. Cloudstone Curio. Steven, what are you talking about? A $50 card in this deck. Dude, read it. Okay? 3 mana. This is whenever a non-artifact permanent comes into play under your control, you may return another target permanent you control that shares a permanent type with it to its owner's hand. This is why it doesn't go in the general build, because we're going to focus on the enchantments so we can get some value out of Cloudstone Curio. So we play a 1-drop enchantment, and we replay another 1-drop enchantment that we just bounce to our hand, getting more spirits. This is a really powerful synergistic way of creating a ton of those 2/2s, because every time we play a Rancor, now something else comes back to our hand for free, and then we can play it again. So all of our one mana enchantments are just going to just loop themselves, making us a ton of 2/2s. Cloudstone Curio is gross. I like it. Drum roll, please. Primal Vigor and Doubling Season share the number 1 spot because they're that good. So they're both 5 drops. One is slightly better than the other, but we won't notice, I promise. Primal Vigor is a 5-drop that says if one or more tokens we put on the battlefield, twice that many tokens are put on the battlefield instead. That includes our opponents. Beware. If one or more 1/1 counters will be placed on a creature, twice that many 1/1 counters are placed on that creature instead. Okay. If an effect would create on Doubling Season, if one or more tokens under your control, it creates twice that many tokens instead. If an effect would put one or more counters on a permanent you control, it puts twice that many counters on that permanent instead. That's a reason why Primal Vigor is a $22 card and Doubling Season is a $50 or $60 card. They're both amazing. They're both fantastic. You should play them both. Yeah, I think you should play them both. Anyway, and let's get into some combos, shall we? Doubling Season and Tooth and Claw. So Tooth and Claw is a 4-drop that says Sacrifice 2 creatures, put a 3/1 red beast creature token named Carnivore onto the battlefield. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to sack 2 creatures that we already have in play, 2 spirits, for instance, and put 2 3/1s into play because of doubling season. Also happens to be in play. So that means we're going to have 2 new 3/1s in play. 2 new 3/1s in play. Now, those 3/1s can now be sacrificed to Tooth and Claw again, which means that we're going to have a whole bunch of entering the battlefield and dying triggers. Perforos says whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent takes 2 damage. Sack 2, get 2, everybody takes 4. Sack 2, get 2, everybody takes 4. They're all dead. I know it's a little bit of Voltron to assemble, but it's still really cool. And then there's Whip Silk and Goldspan Dragon. So this is not going to generate us necessarily infinite mana, but what it will do is with our commander out, we're going to get infinite casts of Whip Silk. So what we're going to do is Goldspan Dragon says whenever it becomes the target of a spell, create a treasure token. It also says that our treasures now tap for 2 of any one color. So every one of our treasures are going to tap for double green. 2 of that green we're going to spend, or 1 of that green we're going to spend on Whip Silk, casting it. The other green we're going to spend on bouncing it back to our hand. We're going to target Goldspan Dragon again and repeat the cycle. We are going to spend 2 mana every time we target Goldspan Dragon. Goldspan Dragon is going to give us a treasure token that's going to tap for 2 green every time we target it with Whip Silk. So that means with our commander in play, we are going to get infinite 2/2s, and likely we're going to have some way of giving them haste and killing our opponents. Heck yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for coming out. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Please tell your friends about it. I'm so excited about my channel, and I'm so excited that you came out, because it's not just my channel. Really, at the end of the day, it's our channel, because I wouldn't make this without you. I really appreciate it. I can't wait to see you tomorrow. Have a great day. Where's my button?